In this video I will explain some of the most basic real estate investing terms I think everyone should know. Let's start with the first one, wholesaling. You probably heard this, especially nowadays. Everyone is trying to sell you a course how to wholesale, how to make money without doing anything. But what is wholesaling? Real estate wholesaling is a strategy where a person enters into a contract to purchase real estate and then before the closing assigns or sells that contract to a third party. So the way the wholesaler makes money is they basically make the difference between the original purchase price and the end buyer's purchase price. So let me give you an example. Let's say the person finds a house for $150,000 in the neighborhood where every house is $200,000. Maybe needs some cosmetic repairs, but the market value of that property is $200,000. The wholesaler is making an offer to the seller for $150,000. The seller accepts the offer knowing or not knowing that the contract is going to be assigned at the closing. Then the wholesaler finds the end buyer and they sell the contract for, let's say, $160,000. So the wholesaler made $10,000 just by assigning the contract. And then that person can do whatever they want with the house. And yes, you can make a bunch of money with real estate wholesaling if you do it the right way. Wholesalers can be a great lead source for real estate investors because they do the hard work finding the deals. Next one is a flip. Let's say that the real estate investor, instead of buying the properties and keeping them for years collecting rents, decides to fix them up and put them on the market and sell them for a profit. So let's say they found off-market or on-market deal for $250,000. All the houses in the area sold for $400,000. But this one needs work. And after they see the property, they estimate that the cost to remodel this would be $75,000. They fix it up and sell it for $400,000. After they pay closing costs and everything, they're left with a nice profit. But what if the same investor finds the property and they decided not to fix it and flip it, but to fix it up and keep it as a rental? This is called BRRRR Method. I'm not sure if I pronounce it right, but it basically stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. This is very similar to flip, but instead of fixing it up and selling it for a higher profit, you do a cash out refinance and use that money to buy other investment properties. This is really powerful strategy used by real estate investors. Okay, next one. What is an MLS? MLS stands for Multiple Listing Service, and it's basically a database used by real estate agents and brokers to share information about properties for sale. For example, I'm a real estate agent and once I sign the listing agreement, I put the house on MLS. Once the listing is activated on MLS, it automatically goes to Trulia, Zillow, Realtor.com and similar websites. At the time of this recording, there are 581 multiple listing services in the US. In some areas you can have multiple MLSs and they can overlap. And every MLS has its own rules and regulations that real estate agents must follow. Next one, what is the contract to purchase? So when people say real estate contract, they usually mean the contract between the buyer and the seller. So the way this works, let's say you find a house you like and you make the offer on that house. If the seller likes the terms of that offer, they accept the offer, sign it, and that becomes a binding contract. Okay, so the contract basically outlines everything that will be happening before the closing. So for example, if you want any inspections, they're gonna be in the contract. Earnest money deposit, closing date, and many other things are written in the contract. So that would be the contract. And I also mentioned earnest money deposit. So what's earnest money deposit? The earnest money deposit is basically the money that you're giving to show the good faith to buy the house. That way the seller knows that you're not going to change your mind tomorrow and just walk away from the deal. And this is the money that's credited to you at the closing. In most cases, again, read the contract, it says everything. But in most cases, if the deal falls apart because of the inspection or the financing, because these are the contingencies in the contract, you're getting your earnest money deposit back. The next term is mortgage. So you want to buy $500,000 property, but you do not have $500,000. So what do? You go to the bank and you ask them for a loan. They review your financial situation, which includes employment, credit history, and many other things, and they give you the pre-approval for $500,000. But let's say you have $50,000 in the bank and you only need a loan for $450,000. That difference is called down payment, which is in this case 10%. Down payment can vary from one loan type to another, but for example, you can get in the property for 3.5% down with an FHA loan. There are some lenders out there, they have all these different loan types. For example, you can get in a house with a 0% down payment. You know, they help you with the down payment assistance and so on and so forth, but that's a topic for another video. But yeah, FHA loan can be a great tool if you want to start real estate investing. Maybe you want to buy a double and live in one unit, because with FHA it has to be owner occupied, or if you want to buy a fourplex and live in one unit, rent the rest of the units, and that way they're gonna pay your mortgage. Next one is equity. So what's equity? Let's say you have a house and the market value of that house today in today's market is 300,000, but you have a mortgage with an outstanding balance of 200,000. So your equity is 100,000. So if you buy a house for cash, you have 100% equity in your home. And as you're paying off this loan along with appreciation, your equity increases. Which brings us to the next one. What is appreciation? Appreciation refers to the increase of value over time. For example, Grandpa John bought the property for 50,000 in 1979, and that house now is worth 450,000. It is true that market goes up and down, but over time real estate appreciates, and that's why it's so great investment. Next one is a landlord. Who is the landlord? In most basic language, landlord is the one whom you're paying rent to. So landlord owns the properties and rent those properties to the tenants. So if you stop paying rent one day, the landlord is going to start the eviction process, which is a legal process where landlord removes a tenant from the rented property. This section typically takes when the tenant breaks the lease. It doesn't have to be the non-payment of rent. It can also be for a simpler reason. For example, the apartment doesn't allow dogs and you're bringing dogs and breaking the lease. Or you're making a party every night and you disturb the tenants. Eviction doesn't happen overnight and every state is different. But usually they give the tenant a notice that they are breaking the lease terms for this or that reason. If the tenant doesn't comply with the notice, the landlord can officially file the eviction. This is not a fun process for either the landlord or the tenant. I honestly hope you learned something from watching this video. There are just so many of these terms and I'm pretty sure I missed something. And I'm actually talking to the younger version of myself, because 2 years ago when I got my real estate license, most of these terms I had no idea what they mean. I enjoy talking about real estate, as you probably know this by now, and thank you so much for watching. Be free to check these videos.